The sky lit up over Seoul on a quiet Tuesday morning. Strange lights flashed across the clouds. People stopped walking. Cars pulled over. Everyone looked up. Captain Ji-ho Kim was eating breakfast when his phone rang. He answered it quickly. "Captain Kim, report to base now." This is not a drill. Ji-ho did not waste time. He put on his uniform and drove fast to the United Earth Defense Force headquarters. The halls were full of running people. Alarms rang everywhere. General Park waved Ji-ho into the main control room. On the big screen was a strange ship. It was huge and shaped like a smooth black oval. It sat just outside Earth's atmosphere. "They sent a message," said General Park. His face was serious. "They want to talk. They say they come in peace." Ji-ho looked at the ship. "Who are they?" "They call themselves the Voidborn, and they asked for us to send our best captain to meet them." General Park looked right at Ji-ho. "That's you." 3 hours later, Ji-ho sat in a small ship with 2 other people. Dr. Hae-jun Lee was a science officer with thick glasses and quick eyes. Soo-min Park was a communications expert who spoke 6 Earth languages and hoped that would help with aliens. "Are you scared?" asked Soo-min as their ship moved toward the much bigger alien craft. "Only a fool wouldn't be," said Ji-ho. "But fear won't help us now." Their small ship entered a large opening in the side of the alien vessel. They landed in a bright room with tall walls. The air was breathable. The door opened. Ji-ho stepped out first, hand near his gun. Hae-jun carried scanning tools. Soo-min held a tablet with translation software. A door in the wall slid open. 3 tall, thin beings walked in. They had pale blue skin that seemed to glow slightly. Their eyes were large and black. They had 4 long fingers on each hand. They wore simple white clothes. The tallest one stepped forward. "I am Nek, ambassador of the Voidborn. We welcome humans to the greater galaxy." Ji-ho was surprised. "You speak our language." "We learn quickly," said Nek. His mouth did not match his words exactly. "We have studied your broadcasts for years." "Why have you come to Earth?" asked Ji-ho. Nek spread his hands. "To help. To share, to bring you into the family of space-faring races." Over the next few hours, Nek showed them amazing things. Rooms that could grow food without soil, machines that could heal any wound, engines that could travel faster than light. "We offer these gifts freely," said Nek. "We wish only friendship." Hae-jun scanned everything with his tools. Most were technologies humans had dreamed about but never made real. It seemed too good to be true. While Nek spoke with Hae-jun about science, Ji-ho noticed something strange. Along one wall were images of human history. Many showed wars and battles. "You are interested in our fighting?" asked Ji-ho. Nek turned quickly. "We study all aspects of new cultures. Your species has a unique history of conflict." "Not something we're proud of," said Ji-ho. "On the contrary," said Nek. "It shows your strength, your will to survive." There was something in his voice that made Ji-ho feel cold. Later, as they prepared to return to Earth, Soo-min whispered to Ji-ho, "They're so advanced. This could change everything for humanity." Ji-ho nodded but said nothing. Something felt wrong. The gifts seemed too generous. The interest in human wars too keen. As they flew back to Earth, Ji-ho looked out the window at the stars. The universe suddenly seemed much bigger and more dangerous. "What did you think of them?" asked Hae-jun. Ji-ho thought carefully before answering. "I think we should be careful what gifts we accept," he said. "Nothing in the universe is truly free." Behind them, the massive Voidborn ship hung in space like a shadow, watching, waiting. 6 months passed since the Voidborn came to Earth. Everything changed quickly. Tall, shiny buildings rose in every city. New machines cleaned the air and water. Food grew in special rooms, ending hunger in many places. Sick people got better with alien medicine. Ji-ho was now General Kim, with a bigger office and more stars on his uniform. But he did not smile much these days. "Something wrong with your coffee?" asked De-hyun Choi. She was a sharp-eyed military officer who worked closely with Jae-ho. "The coffee is fine," said Jae-ho. "It's everything else that bothers me." De-hyun sat down across from him. "I know what you mean. It's all too perfect." Jae-ho nodded. "Have you noticed how many of our weapon systems are being upgraded by Voidborn tech?" "Yes. And how many of our best soldiers are being sent to train on their ships, but come back different," said De-hyun. Jae-ho looked out his window at the Voidborn tower that now stood in the center of the city. It reached higher than any human building. "They're collecting data," he said quietly. "I've seen their labs. They study how humans heal from wounds, how we handle stress, how we fight." De-hyun leaned forward. "Why? That's what we need to find out." That evening, Jae-ho met with De-hyun and Dr. Ho-jun in a small noodle shop far from any Voidborn buildings. They sat in the back corner where no one could hear them. "I found something strange," said Ho-jun, pushing his glasses up. "The new water filters the Voidborn installed. They add something to the water, something that's not on any list they gave us." "Is it harmful?" asked Jae-ho. "Not exactly. It seems to calm people, make them less angry, less likely to fight or argue." De-hyun's eyes widened. "Mind control." "More like mood control," said Ho-jun. "Subtle. You wouldn't notice unless you were looking for it." Jae-ho thought about how peaceful the last few months had been. No wars, few fights, even traffic seemed calmer. "There's more," said De-hyun. "Weapons are disappearing from our bases. Key military people are being sent away on special training. And look at this." She showed them her tablet. On it was a map of Earth with red dots. "These are all places where Voidborn have built their tallest towers. They form a perfect grid around the planet." Jae-ho felt cold. Not communication towers, control towers. The next day, Nek arrived at Jae-ho's office. The tall alien seemed friendly as always. "General Kim, I bring exciting news. The High Council has approved the next phase of our partnership." "What phase is that?" asked Jae-ho, keeping his face calm. "We call it the Peace Enhancement, a special technology that will help humans overcome their natural tendencies toward conflict." Nek showed him a small round device. "These will be placed in all major gathering spots. They emit a field that promotes harmony and cooperation. No more wars, no more violence. Isn't that wonderful?" Jae-ho forced a smile. "Remarkable. When does this start?" "Installation begins tomorrow. In 1 month, Earth will be a true paradise." After Nek left, Jae-ho called De-hyun and Ho-jun. "We have a problem," he said. "They're making their move. Whatever they're planning, it starts now." That night, they met in Ho-jun's lab. He had tested the water and found ways to block its effects. They felt clearer, sharper. "We need to find out what happened to the other species the Voidborn helped," said Jae-ho. "And we need to build a resistance before it's too late." De-hyun nodded. "I'll gather people we can trust. People who avoid the Voidborn water and technology." "We'll call ourselves Iron Will," said Jae-ho. "Because that's what we'll need to keep fighting when others can't." Outside, the Voidborn ships glowed softly in the night sky, watching over their newest conquest. Or so they thought. Jae-ho and De-hyun moved through the dark halls of the main Voidborn tower. They wore cleaning staff uniforms and kept their heads down. Guards walked past them without a second look. "The main control room should be 2 floors up," whispered De-hyun, checking the small map on her wrist device. They had been planning this mission for weeks. Ho-jun had made special filters that they wore in their noses and mouths. These kept the Voidborn's calming chemicals out of their bodies. They remained clear-headed while most humans grew more peaceful and slow each day. When they reached the right floor, Jae-ho used a security card they had copied from a Voidborn worker. The door slid open. Inside was a large, round room with screens covering the walls. No one was there. "Quick," said Jai-Ho. "We don't have much time." Da-hyun went to the main computer. She plugged in a small device that Hejun had made. It broke through the security system and began copying files. "Look at this," she said, pointing to a screen. Jai-Ho's eyes widened. On the screen was a list of planets, 12 of them. Each one had a date next to it. The last date was 6 months ago. Earth's name was next on the list. "They've done this before," he said. 12 times. Daehyun opened more files. They showed pictures of different alien species. Some had many arms. Some had scales. Some looked like giant insects. All the files were marked pacified or harvested. "They come in peace," said Daehyun with anger in her voice. "Then they make the species weak with their peace technology. Then they take over." Jai-Ho found a video file and played it. It showed Nek speaking to a group of Voidborn leaders. "Earth is proceeding as planned," said Nek in the video. "The humans are strong-willed, but our peace fields are working. Most of their military bases are now under our indirect control. In 3 more weeks, we can begin the harvest of resources and useful specimens." Da-hyun's hands shook as she copied everything. "They're not helpers. They're farmers. And we're the crop." An alarm suddenly rang out. Red lights flashed. "We've been found out," said Jai-Ho. "We need to go. Now." They ran from the room, but at the end of the hall stood 3 Voidborn guards with weapons. "This way," said Jai-Ho, pulling Da-hyun down a side hall. They made it to a service elevator and rode it down to the basement. From there, they found a tunnel that led outside the tower. Back at their secret base, an old underground train station, Hejun waited with 20 other trusted humans. All of them wore the special filters. "Did you get the proof?" asked Hejun. Jai-Ho nodded and handed him the data device. "It's worse than we thought. They've done this to 12 other planets. They make the people peaceful, then they take over and harvest." Hejun plugged in the device and started looking through the files. After an hour, he looked up with surprise on his face. "I found something interesting," he said. "The peace technology works differently on different species. And humans," he pointed to a chart, "humans are resisting it more than any other species they've encountered." "What does that mean?" asked Daehyun. "It means they have to use more of it on us. And even then, some humans seem naturally resistant." Jai-Ho thought about this. "Can you use this information to make something to block the effects completely?" Hejun nodded slowly. "I think so. Maybe even reverse them." "Do it," said Jai-Ho. "Meanwhile, we need to grow our group. Find others who are resistant. Build our forces." Daehyun stood up. "I have friends in the Asian Defense Forces, people I trust. If they're not too far gone, they can help us." Jai-Ho looked around at the small group, 20 people against an alien force that had conquered 12 worlds. "We start small," he said, "but we won't stay small. The Voidborn think they're making us peaceful, but they're about to learn something important about humans." "What's that?" asked a young soldier. Jai-Ho's eyes were hard and determined. "We don't stop fighting, no matter what." 1 month after Jai-Ho and Daehyun found the truth, the sky filled with Voidborn ships. Hundreds of them, big and black, covering the sun like storm clouds. The peaceful time was over. Nek's voice came through every speaker, every phone, and every screen on Earth. "People of Earth, the time has come for you to serve a greater purpose. The Voidborn Empire thanks you for your cooperation." Jai-Ho watched from the window of their underground base as large ships landed in the city center. Voidborn soldiers marched out in perfect lines. They wore black armor and carried long weapons. "They're not even trying to hide now," said Daehyun, standing beside him. Most people in the streets just watched with empty eyes as the aliens took control. The peace technology had made them too calm to fight back, too peaceful to even run away. "Hejun, are you ready?" asked Jai-Ho, turning away from the sad sight. Hejun held up small silver devices. Yes, these will block the peace effects completely. And these, he pointed to larger machines around the room. These will send out waves that undo the peace effect in anyone within 1 mile. Let's move, said Jai-Ho. Their group had grown to 150 people. All wore the blocking devices. They split into 10 teams and headed to different parts of the city. Jai-Ho led his team to the main city square where a large void-borne ship had landed. They carried weapons they had hidden away before the peace technology made most soldiers give up their guns. Remember, said Jai-Ho to his team, our job is to turn on the reversal device and wake up as many humans as possible. Then get out fast. They moved through back streets, avoiding void-borne patrols. When they reached the edge of the square, Jai-Ho saw hundreds of people standing still, watching as aliens put strange metal collars on them one by one. Slave collars, whispered Dae-hyun with anger, just like the files showed from the other planets. Jai-Ho nodded to a young man named Min who carried the reversal device. Min set it down behind a wall and turned it on. At first, nothing happened. Then a woman in the crowd shook her head as if waking up. She looked at the alien putting a collar on a child and screamed. She attacked the alien with her bare hands. Like a wave, awareness spread through the crowd. People began to run. Some fought back. Confusion filled the square. It's working, said Dae-hyun. But the Voidborn reacted quickly. A high-pitched sound came from their ship, and many humans fell to their knees in pain. They have backup systems, said Jai-Ho. But we've created enough chaos. Let's go. As they turned to leave, a Voidborn patrol spotted them. Blue energy blasts hit the wall near them. Run, shouted Jai-Ho. They ran through alleys, splitting up to confuse the aliens. Jai-Ho, Da-hyun, and Min stayed together, the reversal device in Min's backpack. They were almost back to their base when 3 Voidborn soldiers stepped out in front of them. Before they could turn, more appeared behind them. Surrender, said one alien. Jai-Ho looked at Da-hyun. They both knew what to do. Jai-Ho grabbed the reversal device from Min and pushed the young man toward a side street. Run. Min, get this back to Hejun, shouted Jai-Ho. Min ran as Jai-Ho and Da-hyun fired their weapons at the aliens, giving him time to escape. A blue blast hit Jai-Ho in the shoulder. Another struck Da-hyun's leg. They fell to the ground, still fighting as the aliens surrounded them. Across the city, similar battles happened. Most of Jai-Ho's teams managed to activate their devices before being caught or killed. Thousands of humans woke up from the peace effect. Some ran. Some fought. Some hid and planned. In the Voidborn command ship, Nek watched the reports come in with surprise. How are they resisting? He asked his science officer. The peace field should make this impossible. I don't know, replied the officer. These humans, they're different somehow. Nek looked at screens showing small battles across the city. His eyes narrowed. Increased the peace field strength. Maximum level. 3 months passed since the Voidborn took over. Cities around the world now had tall black towers. Alien ships flew through the skies. Most humans worked like robots, building things for the Voidborn or mining resources from the earth. But not all humans gave in. Deep underground, in an old subway tunnel, Hejun worked in his lab. Around him, hundreds of people lived and trained. This was the main base of Iron Will, the human resistance. Similar groups existed all over the world. Any luck? Asked Sumin as she brought Hejun a cup of water. Hejun smiled and held up a small round device. Yes, the new blocker is 10 times stronger. It can stop even their strongest peace fields. And Jai-Ho, Da-hyun, asked Sumin, her face sad. No news yet, but we know they're alive. The Voidborn are keeping them in the main tower for questioning. In another part of the base, a man named Ta Wu-Kang worked with pieces of alien technology. He had been an engineer before the invasion. Now he built weapons. Look at this, he said to a group of fighters. He held up what looked like a regular metal pipe. It's made from parts of a void-born ship. When you press here, he touched a spot on the pipe, and blue light glowed at one end. It can cut through their armor. The fighters looked impressed. One took the weapon and tested it on a piece of metal. The pipe cut through it like it was paper. We have 20 so far, said Tawu. We'll have 50 by next week. Above ground, in the main void-born tower, Jeho sat in a cell. His body hurt from the aliens' questions, but he told them nothing about the resistance. The door opened, and Nek walked in. Captain Kim, said Nek, why make this hard on yourself? Tell us how some humans resist our peace technology, and the pain will stop. Jeho looked up at the tall alien. We resist because that's what humans do. We don't give up. We don't stop fighting. Nek seemed confused. But why? Look at the other species we've helped. They accepted peace. They live simple lives now, serving the greater good. You mean serving you, said Jeho. Humans would rather die fighting than live as slaves. Such a waste, said Nek, shaking his head. He left the cell. In another cell, Da-hyun had the same strength. Day after day, the aliens asked her questions. Day after day, she stayed silent. Meanwhile, Ho-jun made an important discovery. He found a way to not just block the peace technology, but to turn it against the Voidborn. Their technology works on brainwaves, he explained to the resistance leaders. It makes peaceful patterns stronger and fighting patterns weaker. But if we reverse it, it would make people want to fight back, said Sumin. It would wake up everyone at once. Ho-jun nodded. Yes, but we need to place this device at the center of their network, inside the main tower. The leaders looked at each other. The main tower was the most guarded place on Earth. We need to rescue Jeho and Da-hyun anyway, said Tawu. Let's do both. They planned for days. Fighters trained with the new weapons. Scouts mapped the tower's guards and doors. In the Voidborn Science Lab, alien scientists studied humans with growing concern. They keep resisting, said one scientist to Nek. Even after 3 months, new human fighters appear every day. How is this possible? Asked Nek, looking at screens showing resistance attacks around the world. Our peace technology works on all species. Not quite all, it seems, said the scientist. These humans have something we haven't seen before, a kind of mental strength. The longer we fight them, the stronger they become. Nek watched a video of a small human group attacking a Voidborn patrol. The humans had simple weapons against advanced alien technology. They should have lost easily. But they fought with such fierce energy that they won. Fascinating, said Nek. And disturbing. For the first time, Nek felt something new. Doubt. Had the Voidborn finally met a species they couldn't conquer? Night fell over the city. In 12 places around the world, humans moved as one. The time had come to fight back. Su-min led 50 fighters toward the main Voidborn tower. All wore the special blockers Ho-jun had made. They carried weapons Tawu had built from alien parts. Remember the plan, said Su-min. Team 1 makes noise at the front door. Team 2 cuts power to the east side. We go in through the loading area when they're busy with the others. In the sky above, Yun Jo-yoon sat in the pilot's seat of a small plane. Before the invasion, she had been one of Earth's best pilots. Now she flew a craft that Tawu had changed with Voidborn parts. I'm in position, she said through her radio. Ready when you are. Similar scenes played out in cities across the world. London, Cairo, Tokyo, Sydney, Rio, New York. Everywhere, humans rose up at the same time. Inside the main tower, Nek was in a meeting with Voidborn leaders. The humans are still causing problems, he said, but we found most of their hiding places. Soon we'll. Alarms rang out. The lights went out for a moment, then came back on with a red glow. What's happening? Asked a Voidborn leader. Nek checked the screens. His eyes grew wide. We're under attack. Everywhere. At once. Outside, Su-min's team reached the loading area. Two guards stood there. Ta Wu raised his pipe weapon and fired. Blue light hit one guard. The fighter next to him hit the other. Both aliens fell without making a sound. "Move," said Sumin. They ran inside the tower. Sumin had a map that showed where Jaiho and Dahyun were being held. They ran upstairs and through halls. When they met aliens, they fought quickly and kept moving. Above the tower, Yunji saw other Voidborn ships rising to stop her. She smiled and pushed a button. Her plane shot forward faster than any Earth plane could fly. She raced past the alien ships and dropped small bombs on the tower's roof, not to destroy it, but to make more confusion. Nek watched the screens in horror. Reports came in from around the world. Humans were attacking everywhere at once. How had they planned this? How had they made weapons that could hurt Voidborn soldiers? "Send all guards to protect the control center," he ordered. In the prison area, Sunin's team found Jaiho's cell. They cut through the door with their weapons. Jaiho looked up, surprised. "Took you long enough," he said with a small smile. "You're welcome," said Sumin, helping him stand. They found Dahyun in the next cell. She was weak but could walk. They gave both of them blockers to wear. "We need to reach the control center," said Jaiho. "Hojun has made something that can turn their technology against them." "That's the most guarded place in the tower," said Sumin. Jaiho picked up a weapon from a fallen fighter. "Then we'll need to fight hard." They moved up through the tower. More aliens tried to stop them. The fighting was fierce. Some humans fell, but they kept moving forward. In the control center, Nek prepared to send a message to the Voidborn homeworld asking for more ships. The door burst open. Jaiho walked in, followed by Dahyun, Sumin, and 10 other fighters. "This ends now," said Jaiho. Nek stared at him. "How did you escape? How are you fighting the peace field?" "Humans don't like being controlled," said Jaiho. "We find ways to break free." Dahyun stepped forward with a device Hajun had made. She placed it on the main control panel. "What is that?" asked Nek, backing away. "We call it the wake-up call," said Dahyun. She pressed a button on the device. It glowed and sent a signal through the Voidborn network. Across the city, people who had been like robots suddenly stopped working. They looked around as if waking from a dream. Then they began to fight back against the aliens who had controlled them. The same thing happened around the world. Nek watched the screens in disbelief as his perfect conquest fell apart in minutes. "Impossible," he whispered. Jaiho stood tall despite his injuries. "No, Nek. For humans, fighting against all odds isn't impossible. It's what we do best." The Voidborn fought back hard. After the surprise attack, they'd brought new weapons from their ships. 1 week after the human counterattack, the war was far from over. Jaiho stood on a rooftop, looking at the city. Some buildings burned. Voidborn ships flew low, hunting for humans. The wake-up call had worked, but the aliens still had strong weapons and many soldiers. "We need to take out their command ship," said Dahyun, standing beside him. Her leg was still weak from her time in prison, but she refused to rest. "Yunji says it's impossible," said Jaiho. "Their main ship has shields our weapons can't break." Hojun joined them on the roof. "I have news. The Voidborn are bringing a new weapon, something they call the Painmaker." "What does it do?" asked Jaiho. "It sends out waves that cause terrible pain to any living thing," said Hojun. "They've used it on other planets when species fought back too hard." Dahyun's face grew dark. "How do we stop it?" "I don't know yet," said Hejun. "But Ta-Wu is working on something." In his workshop under the city, Ta-Wu worked with pieces of Voidborn technology. He had been awake for 3 days straight. His eyes were red, but he kept working. "Almost there," he said to himself. "This should work." The device he built looked like a large metal disc with blue lights. If his idea worked, it would block the Painmaker's signals. The next day, 6 huge Voidborn ships moved into position around the city. From each, a tall metal tower dropped to the ground. The towers began to glow red. "They're starting the Painmaker," said Hejun, looking at his scanner. "We have minutes at most." Tawu's device wasn't ready. They had no defense. The red glow from the towers grew brighter. Then, a wave of invisible energy spread across the city. Humans fell to the ground, screaming. The pain was unlike anything they had felt before. It felt like fire in their veins, like their bones were breaking. Jaiho fell to his knees. Da-hyun lay on the ground next to him. Hejun curled into a ball, shaking. But then, something strange happened. After a few minutes, some humans began to stand up. They were still in pain, but they forced themselves to move. Jaiho pushed himself to his feet. His body screamed at him to lie down, but he refused. Da-hyun did the same. Across the city, humans stood up through the pain. In the Voidborn command ship, Nek watched in shock. "Impossible," he said. "The Painmaker breaks all species. Why are they still moving?" "I don't understand," said a Voidborn scientist. "The pain should be too much for any brain to ignore." On the ground, Tawu crawled to his device. Pain tore through his body, but he kept moving. He reached the disk and made the final connections. His fingers slipped as he worked, but he didn't stop. "For Earth," he whispered as he pressed the activation button. The device hummed to life. A blue wave spread out from it, hitting one of the Painmaker towers. The tower sparked and went dark. But the other towers were still working. The pain continued. Taegu knew what he had to do. He picked up the device and began to walk toward the next tower. Each step was agony. The pain tried to force him down, but he kept walking. "What is he doing?" asked Da-hyun, watching from a window. "He's going to shut down each tower," said Jaiho. "But he'll never make it to all of them." Taegu reached the second tower. He placed his device against it. The tower sparked and died. He picked up the device again and staggered toward the third tower. In the command ship, Nek increased the power. "More. Make it stronger." The pain doubled. Humans screamed and fell again. But again, they started to get up. Taewoo fell to the ground. The pain was too much now, but he saw other humans moving toward him. They picked up his device and continued the mission. "Human pain tolerance is off the charts," said the Voidborn scientist. "They feel it, but they keep going." For the first time, Nek felt fear. What kind of species are they? 1 year had passed since the Voidborn first came to Earth. The battle raged on, but things had changed. Jaiho stood on the bridge of a ship, but not an Earth ship. This ship had once belonged to the Voidborn. Now humans ran it. The controls had been changed to fit human hands. The weapons had been made stronger. Humans had learned fast. "General, we're ready to take off," said a young officer. Jaiho nodded. "Tell all ships to launch." 20 ships rose into the air. Each one had been taken from the Voidborn and changed by human engineers. Leading them was Inji's ship, the fastest of all. "This is Inji," her voice came through the radio. "All pilots report in." One by one, the pilots called back. They were ready for the biggest attack yet. On the ground, Da-hyun led 5,000 fighters. They wore armor made from Voidborn materials. They carried weapons that mixed Earth guns with alien power. "Today we take back our planet," she said to her troops. "Today the Voidborn learn what happens when they pick a fight with humans." The people cheered. Many had lost homes and loved ones. All had felt the pain of the Painmaker. None had given up. In his lab, Hejun worked with a team of scientists. They had studied Voidborn technology for months. Now they understood how it worked and how to make it better. "The signal is ready," said Hejun. "When you give the word, we can shut down half their systems." Jaiho's voice came through the radio. "Do it now." Hejun pressed a button. A signal went out from towers around the world. Towers the humans had built. In space, The main Voidborn ship floated above Earth. Inside, Nek met with the Voidborn High Command. 3 tall aliens with gold skin had come from the homeworld to see why Earth was not yet conquered. "This is taking too long," said the oldest leader. "We have never spent a full year taking a planet. What is the problem?" Nek tried to explain. "These humans are different. The ship's lights went out. The screens went dark. Emergency lights came on with a red glow." "What's happening?" demanded the leader. "We're under attack," said Nek. On Earth, the battle began. Yun-Jai led the air fleet toward the Voidborn's biggest base. Her weapons hit their shields, but these weren't normal weapons anymore. They broke through. On the ground, Dahyun's army marched forward. Voidborn soldiers fell back as the humans kept coming despite heavy fire. "How are they doing this?" asked a Voidborn commander. "Their weapons shouldn't be this strong." The answer was simple. Humans had learned. They had taken Voidborn technology and made it better. They had found weaknesses in alien armor. They had never stopped thinking, never stopped trying. In space, the High Command watched as their forces on Earth began to lose. "This is not possible," said the youngest leader. "No species has ever turned our technology against us this way." "I warned you," said Nek. "Humans don't stop. No matter what we do, they keep fighting. They learn from every loss. They grow stronger from pain." The oldest leader stood up. "We must leave this planet. Now." "Leave?" asked Nek in shock. "This world is too costly to take," said the leader. "We will find easier planets." As they prepared to leave, Jaiho's fleet of ships reached space. They surrounded the main Voidborn ship. "Voidborn vessel," Jaiho's voice came through their comms. "This is General Jaiho Kim of Earth. You are surrounded." The Voidborn tried to run, but their engines had been shut down by Hejun's signal. Their weapons were weak against the improved human ships. Yunji's ship led the attack. They broke through the Voidborn defenses and boarded the main ship. Jaiho came face to face with Nek and the High Command. The aliens stood tall but afraid. "How?" asked the oldest leader. "How did you defeat our perfect system?" Jaiho looked the alien in the eye. "Because humans never accept defeat. It's not in our nature. We keep fighting. We keep learning. We never stop." For the first time in their long history, the Voidborn High Command surrendered. 6 months after the Voidborn surrendered, Earth was changing again. The black towers were gone. The skies were clear of alien ships. In their place, new buildings rose that mixed human and Voidborn technology. Jaiho stood in a large round room. It was the meeting place of the Galactic Council. Leaders from 15 different species sat around a huge table. Some had many arms. Some had scales. Some looked like insects. At one end sat 3 Voidborn leaders, no longer wearing their gold armor. Dahyun stood next to Jaiho. She represented Earth's military. Hejun was there too, speaking for Earth's scientists. "Today we welcome Earth to the Council," said a tall blue alien with 4 arms. "For the first time in our history, a new species joins not as a subject, but as an equal." The room filled with strange sounds as each species made their form of applause. "We also mark a new age," continued the blue alien. "The Voidborn Empire is no more. In its place, we build a true council of equals." The Voidborn leaders looked down at the table. They had lost not just Earth, but all their power. The 12 species they had conquered were now free. Jaiho stepped forward to speak. "Earth thanks the Council for this welcome. We come not to rule, but to help. What we learned in our fight can help others." After the meeting, Nek approached Jaiho. The tall alien looked different now. Less proud. More thoughtful. "General Kim," said Nek, "I have been studying your people more carefully, not to find weaknesses, but to understand." "And what have you learned?" asked Jaiho. "Your history is full of fighting, yes, but also of making peace after war, of building after breaking. This is rare among species. Jai-Ho nodded. Humans fight hard when we must, but we prefer to build than destroy. In the halls of the council building, other aliens came to meet the humans. Many wanted to know how Earth had defeated the Voidborn. Some wanted to learn from humans. A few even wanted to visit Earth. Dahyun spoke with a group of small green aliens. They had been the first species the Voidborn had conquered long ago. "You gave us hope," said their leader. "We watched Earth fight back, and it woke something in us. We remembered how to be brave." In another room, Hee-Jun shared knowledge with alien scientists. He showed them how humans had changed Voidborn technology. "Your minds work differently than ours," said an insect-like scientist. "You see patterns we miss. You try things we would think impossible." Back on Earth, Yunjide led a new kind of flight academy. Humans learned to fly ships that could travel between stars. Tagu's designs for new technology were built in factories around the world. Ships from other worlds began to visit Earth. Trade started between planets. Humans went to the stars for the first time, not as conquerors, but as explorers and friends. In the council's main hall, a new display was built. It showed the history of how the Voidborn Empire fell and a new age began. At its center was a simple message: peace through strength, freedom through courage, unity through respect. 1 year after joining the council, Jai-Ho stood on a hill near his old home. The stars looked different to him now. He knew which ones had planets with life, which ones humans had visited, which ones waited to be explored. Nek walked up beside him. The alien was now Earth's ambassador to his own people. "I still don't fully understand humans," said Nek. "After all this time." Jai-Ho smiled. "What don't you understand? You fought so hard. You never stopped, no matter what we did. But once you won, you offered peace. You could have destroyed us, but you didn't." "That's the final lesson about humans," said Jai-Ho. "We fight without stopping when we must. But what we really want, what we fight for, is not victory." "Then what?" asked Nek. "A better tomorrow," said Jai-Ho, looking up at the stars. "Always a better tomorrow."